You think the scariest part of a horror film is what happens on screen? What if I told you the real terror began long before the cameras rolled at a desk, in silence, when a writer sat down to work and never wrote the script alone? Some films are penned with vision and talent. Others arrive like transmissions from somewhere else. They pour out of people who don't remember writing them, who can't explain why certain scenes appeared fully formed, or why their dreams bled into the page. Stories that write themselves, pages that vanish, scripts no one ever claimed. In this episode of The Night Shriek, we journey through 15 horror films with origins as twisted as their content, each rumored to have been created under the weight of something unnatural. These aren't just movies, they're messages. From where or from whom? That's the question. Step into the quiet, pick up the pen, and ask yourself how many of these films were truly written by human hands. Fact Hasson, The Norliss Tapes, 1973. He shut the door, dimmed the lights, and typed until the keys bled ink. A week passed. Then, only silent. William F. Nolan, respected writer with a meticulous process, reportedly wrote the script for the Norliss Tapes in an unbroken stretch, no breaks, no rewrites, just an endless flow of words. But when it came time to submit the final version, it was gone. The original file, the draft pages missing. All that remained were secondhand copies and audio recordings. Some of those tapes, according to crew members, play back with gaps, as though something interrupted him. The film follows a journalist unraveling an occult mystery, told through disjointed audio logs. Ironically or not, it mirrors Nolan's real-life writing ordeal, a man investigating dark forces, leaving behind fragments for others to piece together. The atmosphere of the Norliss Tapes isn't just eerie, it feels unfinished on purpose, like the film itself was aware of a larger narrative and chose to hide it. Some stories are written, others are left behind like breadcrumbs, just enough to follow, but never enough to return. Fact #2, The Mephisto Waltz, 1971. The music didn't just guide the writing, it dictated it. Screenwriter Ben Maddow claimed the script for The Mephisto Waltz arrived not from inspiration, but from a force that channeled through him. It began with a melody stuck in his head, a waltz he couldn't place. As he wrote, entire scenes emerged without conscious effort. The dialogue, he said, wasn't his voice. Attempts to revise the screenplay led nowhere. Edits would vanish. Notes became indecipherable. Colleagues joked the pages were protected by some unseen author. Maddow never laughed. The film deals in themes of body swapping, possession, and the theft of identity through art. But what lingers is the feeling that the story had already been told long before it reached paper. Maddow described the process as exhausting, like playing music I didn't know I knew. Sometimes the artist isn't playing the instrument. Sometimes the melody plays the man. Fact #3, The Shuttered Room, 1967. Ask 10 people who wrote The Shuttered Room, and you'll get 10 different answers. None of them match the credits. Adapted loosely from a Lovecraftian short story, the screenplay went through multiple hands, yet the final script contains scenes no writer recalls drafting. Some claim to recognize their own sentence structures in passages they swear they never touched. One rewrite was reportedly faxed in from an address that turned out to be a long-demolished building. What emerged was a film stitched together from disparate voices, yet unnervingly coherent. Like a puzzle assembled by strangers, using a guide no one saw. The film plays like a hallucination, overlapping tones, unnatural pacing, and dialogue that feels overheard rather than written. One actor described it best. It was like reciting lines whispered through the walls. Some scripts are collaborative, others feel like seance transcripts. Fact #4, The Night Digger, 1971. Sometimes a script doesn't echo your thoughts, it knows them. Patricia Neal, still recovering from a life-altering stroke, joined The Night Digger with hope of reclaiming her career. But what she found in the script wasn't recovery, it was reflection. She described the words as disturbingly intimate, as though someone had written her fears before she could speak them. Her husband, Roald Dahl, was credited as screenwriter, but Dahl later insisted parts of the story came to him through dreams, recurring images of isolation, guilt, and paralysis, delivered in fragments night after night. Some pages, he admitted, wrote themselves, and others arrived with handwriting neither of them could identify. The film vibrates with the weight of buried trauma. Dialogue lingers too long. Empty rooms feel populated by memory. Neal's performance is restrained, but not empty. It's as though she's reading lines from a life that never quite happened, but could have. This wasn't a role, it was an exorcism. Fact #5, The Evil, 1980. 978, the script appeared unannounced. No envelope, no courier, just sitting there, waiting. During pre-production on The Evil, a screenplay surfaced at the production office with no contact information and no submission trail. Typed, stapled, unattributed. The only note? 3 words stamped in red. Do not alter. Naturally, they tried. Each revision attempt failed. Files corrupted. Pages vanished from folders. In one instance, the printed dialogue reappeared in its original form after being manually deleted. A production assistant quit, claiming the script didn't want to be changed. The resulting film is fragmented, frenzied, tonally unstable, but compellingly so. Events escalate without rhythm, and characters behave as if guided by something off-screen. The film doesn't build, it lashes out. Years later, the director admitted he had no memory of writing or approving the shooting draft. "I thought someone else had handled it," he said, "but no one ever came forward. Some scripts are forgotten. Others forget you first." Fact cancelletose. Let's Scare Jessica to Death, 1971. It began with a dream, always the same. A woman rising from the lake. No eyes, no sound, just presence. Screenwriter Lee Kalkheim had never kept a dream journal before. But when that image haunted him for a 3rd consecutive week, he started writing. The scenes came in flashes, impressionistic, half-formed, stitched together by mood rather than logic. The lake, the silence, the whisper of something just beneath the surface. He later admitted he never wrote an outline, never mapped an ending. "It wasn't a story," he said. "It was a transmission from a place I didn't know I had access to." The film is often described as delicate, atmospheric, even sad. But beneath that lies a stillness that feels less like peace and more like suppression. Like something is hiding, something afraid of being seen. When filming wrapped, Kalkheim burned his notes. He said it was better not to dream the same thing twice. Fact #7. Alucarda, 1977. It wasn't written, it was released. Director Juan Lopez Moctezuma fell ill while developing a project. Days of fever blurred into nights of hallucination. Between mutterings and sweats, he dictated a film. Blood, nuns, screaming rituals. His friend took notes, assuming it was nonsense. It wasn't. When Moctezuma recovered, he had no memory of the dictation. But the pages made sense, too much sense. He called it Alucarda and refused to change a word. "If I didn't write it, I don't get to edit it," he reportedly said. The film pulses with chaotic energy. It doesn't build tension, it bleeds it. Every frame screams, every expression is heightened. The camera doesn't observe it, confronts. There's no safe distance, no clear message, just the madness of something that needed to be seen, even if no one should have filmed it. He never made anything like it again, maybe because he couldn't, or maybe because whatever spoke, stopped speaking. Fact #8. Next of kin, 1982. The first copy of the script didn't come through email or mail. It was found already printed on a desk no one used. No one took credit. No one remembered placing it there. The pages were crisp, clean, and untitled, except for a line scribbled across the cover. "Keep the door locked." What followed was Next of Kin, a film steeped in dread so subtle it slides beneath the skin before you realize it's there. Its horror is quiet. The pacing is unnatural, too slow, then suddenly too fast. The editing feels like memory, out of order, uncertain, untrustworthy. Several scenes eerily mirrored private details from the lead actress's own life. She asked who had access to her background. No one had. Producers attempted to contact the supposed writer. The listed name didn't exist. No tax ID, no credits, no address. Just a signature and a vanished trail. Sometimes the scariest part of a haunted house is realizing it knew you were coming. Fact #9. The Sender, 1982. The dream started at exactly 3:11 a.m. every night. Always the same boy, always the same phrase. "He dreams you back." Thomas Baum kept a notebook by his bed, desperate to regain control. But the more he wrote, the less he recognized his own handwriting. The entries grew longer, more vivid, until one day he had a full script. He didn't outline it, didn't revise it. The Sender emerged like a completed thought, a lucid nightmare. He later said the screenplay felt more like a memory than an invention. The film blurs the boundary between trauma and transmission. A patient's nightmares leak into reality. But what unsettles is the feeling that the audience, too, is being watched absorbed into someone else's psychic static. When asked about the writing process, Baum said this: "I don't remember starting it, I only remember finishing." Fact #0. Messiah of Evil, 1973. 2 writers, 1 dream. and a script neither could remember finishing. Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz were no strangers to collaboration. But Messiah of Evil was different. They started with a vague concept, a coastal town cut off from time, but soon their writing sessions blurred into something stranger. Pages overlapped, notes duplicated. Sometimes, they'd find dialogue in each other's handwriting they didn't recall writing. The image that haunted both was the same, a town without mirrors, no reflections, only eyes. Actors reported receiving revised scenes that neither writer had delivered. One even swore the pages smelled of salt water. What resulted is a film that feels like it's broadcasting from another place. Familiar elements, zombies, isolation, madness, are presented through a filter of sleep paralysis. It doesn't escalate, it accumulates. Years later, when asked about the film's meaning, both writers paused. We don't think we were meant to understand it. And maybe that was never the point. Fact Hasson Yoon, The Keep, 1983. The fortress wasn't built, it arrived. Michael Mann adapted The Keep from a novel, but the screenplay took on a life of its own. Pages multiplied, scenes wrote themselves out of order. By the third draft, Mann admitted the structure no longer resembled the book or his own outline. He began dreaming of stone corridors, of whispering walls. He described the writing process as walking through a maze where the exit keeps changing. Actors came to set confused. Entire sequences were filmed with no clear idea where they fit. Editors tried to assemble a coherent cut, but the footage fought back, frames disappearing, audio loops emerging out of silence. The final film is broken, fragmented, and yet it pulses with ancient dread, like a monument covered in dust but still breathing beneath. Some say the real version never made it to screen. Others wonder if it ever existed to begin with. Not all adaptations translate. Some overwrite. Fact Hasson 2, Deathbed, The Bed That Eats, 1977. He made the film, then forgot it existed. George Barry's Deathbed is one of the strangest horror artifacts of the 1970 seconds, a film about a bed that consumes the living, told with poetic voiceover and dreamlike logic. Barry wrote it after a string of recurring nightmares, completed the project, and then lost all memory of it for nearly 3 decades. He discovered its existence again on an online horror forum. Watching it years later, he realized something was off. Scenes he didn't recall filming, shots he never storyboarded, a narration track he swore he didn't write. The film unfolds like a riddle whispered in reverse. Time collapses, logic decays. The horror is absurd, yet inescapably eerie, like a nightmare you can't wake from, because you never knew you were asleep. When asked about the film's origin, Barry offered only this: "I think it needed to be made. I just happened to be the vessel." Fact Hasson 3, Lamora, A Child's Tale of the Supernatural, 1973. No one remembers who finalized the script, not even the people who made the film. Lamora feels like it was dreamt, not written. A young girl wanders through a Southern Gothic world, teeming with predatory beauty, decaying faith, and things that speak only in silence. The tone is hypnotic. The logic? Optional. Director Richard Blackburn claimed to have co-written the script with Robert Fern, but both men denied responsibility for certain scenes, particularly those that shifted abruptly into surreal horror. Some dialogue, Blackburn noted, read like childhood memories misremembered by something darker. Production crew found pages of revised dialogue tucked under their equipment typed unsigned. Others swore the scenes they were filming didn't match the schedule, yet they kept filming anyway. The finished film feels disconnected from any specific era. It's timeless, or perhaps unmoored, like a lullaby sung in a dead language. Fact Hasson 4, The Visitor, 1979. There was no pitch, no plan, just a flood. Director Giulio Paradisi never clearly explained how The Visitor came to be. One day, he was writing notes for a sci-fi thriller. 2 days later, he had a full screenplay, bizarre, sprawling, and wildly incoherent. It fused psychic children, interdimensional war, and a silent, staring John Huston. Paradisi called the script a transmission, as if it had been beamed into his head. Crew members said new scenes were added constantly, without warning. Dialogue arrived, scrawled on scraps of paper. At times, Paradisi claimed the characters revealed themselves mid-shoot. He wasn't directing them, he was documenting them. What emerged is a film that feels like someone described a nightmare to an alien who had never seen a movie, and the alien made it anyway. The plot isn't broken, it was never constructed, just delivered. And Paradisi never wrote again. Fact Hasson 5, Dark August, 1976. The script wasn't written, It was inherited. Martin Goldman received a leather-bound journal in the mail. No sender. Inside, drawings, notations, and a scene-by-scene structure for a horror film. At the bottom of each page, a recurring symbol, a circle broken by a jagged line. He didn't question it. He adapted it. Every attempt to alter the structure failed. Rehearsals would fall apart, dialogue would vanish. One camera refused to record any scene that deviated from the journal. Dark August is a quiet, rural horror story about guilt and supernatural consequence. But what lingers is how personal it feels, like it knows the viewer, like it was written with them in mind. Goldman locked the journal away after production. He says he's not sure where, or if it's still there. Sometimes the scariest part isn't who wrote the story, it's who it was written for. The script wasn't written, it was inherited. Martin Goldman received a leather-bound journal in the mail. No sender. Inside, drawings, notations, and a scene-by-scene structure for a horror film. At the bottom of each page, a recurring symbol, a circle broken by a jagged line. He didn't question it. He adapted it. Every attempt to alter the structure failed. Rehearsals would fall apart, dialogue would vanish. One camera refused to record any scene that deviated from the journal. Dark August is a quiet, rural horror story about guilt and supernatural consequence. But what lingers is how personal it feels, like it knows the viewer, like it was written with them in mind. Goldman locked the journal away after production. He says he's not sure where, or if it's still there. Sometimes the scariest part isn't who wrote the story, it's who it was written for. Bonus pick, Paper House, 1988. Before we close this descent, there's one more film that belongs in the shadows. She sketched a face, then the face learned to look back. Paper House is a dream carved into film stock, a story that feels half remembered, as if someone else dreamt it for you. Screenwriter Matthew Jacobs claimed he never outlined his script. He simply woke with scenes already arranged in his mind, as if his dreams were teaching him how to write them. It follows a young girl whose drawings shape the world she visits in her fevered imagination. What begins as childish escapism quickly becomes something claustrophobic. The house she designs grows cold. The boy she draws becomes a stranger. Every detail she adds tightens the trap. The film doesn't frighten with violence. It frightens with honesty, the kind that only dreams can inflict. The warped loneliness of childhood, the sense that something unseen is watching you, waiting for the lights to go out. Years later, Jacobs admitted that he can't recall writing certain scenes. Some moments, he said, feel like they were placed there for me, not by me. Maybe that's why Paper House lingers. It plays like a story borrowed from someone else's subconscious. And sometimes, borrowed stories don't want to be returned. If you find yourself drawn to stories that weren't meant to touch paper, you're in the right place. There are more films out there: lost drafts, strange origins, scripts whispered in the dark. And we intend to bring them all into the light, one shadow at a time. If you want to keep descending with us, consider staying close. Darkness has a way of finding those who listen.